Well, there was like, okay, it was a really good shoot, but I'm gonna be honest, it was a really good shoot, but it was a really hard shoot. It was not an easy shoot for multiple reasons.
It was an interesting time for me creatively. I wrote 3 Saw movies. I'm not exactly someone who's been showered with good reviews my whole life. So when The Invisible Man came out, I was really chuffed, as they say.
When like a lion is like eating, you know what I mean, and it's still watching what's around, but its mouth is moving, but its eyes are very focused on still, like little things like that you can sort of just steal and take, and that's what I did.
What is happening to me?
Can you understand me? You're hearing me. You're scaring me.
And I guess I want to start just by asking what your particular kind of experiences in the past of werewolf films. Did you have any kind of reverence for the original Wolfman, and what is your background in this genre, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, the original I hadn't seen until like later. I think I saw it it's like 20, in my late 20s at some point I saw it. So it wasn't one I saw growing up. The first sort of werewolf genre movie that I can remember that I saw, I think, was American Werewolf in London. That my uncle showed it to me early because he liked that movie a lot. So, and that's sort of sort of a strange little comedy. So that was like, I don't know, anyway, and then all the other ones that I've seen over the years, whether it's the Benicio one or the Jack Nicholson Wolf one, over the years I've seen them all. But what's interesting is that they're all sort of different, whether it's 18th century and very classic or American Werewolf in London, they all really have their own sort of take and spin on it. And so, this one sort of, I think, adds to that because it feels like its own thing also.
Yeah, I mean, I've always enjoyed it. I'm like, a great movie is a great movie, so it doesn't matter what genre it is. I'm gonna enjoy it. Actually, one of them, I really thought Invisible Man was really well done. So when I signed up for this, I wasn't really that worried about it because I knew that Leigh really knew this genre and this world. So it was an easy yes.
Yeah, and I guess the great things about these monsters is that they can be used as metaphors for so many different things through the ages, and I think it's interesting that this one is about many things, but one of those things is that deterioration between the relationship. And I saw something you'd said, which was you wanted to convey the 7 stages of grief in one night, which I thought was interesting. So I wondered if you could speak a bit about that and how you wanted to bring that to the film.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping for that. So if that was kind of my North Star through the prep work in a way, and because there are challenges if you do a film that takes place in one day. I've done that in the past for like very different film. I did that with this film called Grandma, and it took place in like one day, and there's challenges if you do a film that takes place in one day because you want to have different colors, or you don't want it to be all the same in a way. And also just, I kind of viewed, Leigh, Chris, and I, we all talked about how the wolfman was kind of almost like a disease, and she was slowly losing her husband right in front of her eyes, and she, even though he was still alive, but he wasn't the person that he used to be. So that was kind of the thing that, inspired for me. I always read it 7 stages of grief because, that's also how it was. It seemed like it was written in a way.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, I think as an actor too, I think you always look for those themes. It's fun to play an animal. It's fun to get into the genre world. It's fun to do all this sort of fantastical stuff that we do in this movie. But you always want to have some sort of heart or some sort of through line there that you can actually connect things to, so that there's something moving about it. Because I think all the best sort of genres, scary horror film, whatever you want to call it, all have that. And this one, a big theme that we had talked about was this, to make it relatable, is this idea of illness. and like what that means, and there's a lot of things that happen to this character that while it's going through a transformation, a fantastical sort of transformation, you can relate them to a lot of different kinds of illnesses and ones that we've all been around, whether it's there's Alzheimer's, there's all these things where you lose your ability to talk, your ability to speak, to remember who the person in front of you is. So while it's all happening under the guise of this sort of animal transformation, those are the things that I can then act through, because I that's what I understand, in life. And so, yeah, I mean, that's how those two things met for me.
Yeah, and in terms of the actual movement that you need to embody for this character throughout the transformation as he becomes more wolf-like, what were the kind of main sources of inspiration, I guess, in terms of how you move your body and how that kind of develops over the film?
Yeah, a few things. I mean, again, YouTube is a great resource sometimes, so even just like watching a bunch of animal videos, and it doesn't just have to be wolf, it can be, anything. Like, you can get, I would sort of pick things out from, something in. I remember seeing a video of, and you've seen it, I'm sure too, of like when like a lion is like eating, you know what I mean, and it's still watching what's around, but its mouth is moving, but its eyes are very focused on still, like little things like that you can sort of just steal and take, and that's what I did. And then I worked with a friend of mine, Orr Schreiber, who's I like movement and dance, and he's a dancer, choreographer, movement. So I worked with him just to come up with different ideas for like physical moves, like incorporating how your shoulder, back, how to make shapes with your body. I can't literally turn into a wolf, or whatever, an animal. So like, how do you make your body look a certain way that feels sort of unnatural or supernatural or whatever? So yeah, it was an amalgamation of those things.
What's it like as an actor when you're acting opposite someone who is, covered in prosthetics, as Christopher is in this film? Does that make it quite an interesting challenge in a way?
Well, there was it was a really good shoot, but I'm going to be honest, it was a really good shoot, but it was a really hard shoot. It was not an easy shoot for multiple reasons. One of them being, it definitely made it easier to have it being practical, because I could actually see, and it made it not acting, it just made it real. That being said, Chris was in prosthetics for 6 hours a day. And I think I'm getting the number right. I don't want to speak for him, but I'm pretty sure it's 6 hours. And so like sometimes for like half the day, I would have to act with a different stand-in, basically. And like, and also with, I had a daughter and she had like a time limit. So there was all these like technical things, obstacles and challenges. But but you know what? Sometimes it's like when you have no time, you're sometimes more efficient. So yeah. And then if you have the prep, you need prep time. Maybe not time.
Yeah, you mentioned the daughter character there as well, played by Matilda Firth. What was it like to work with her and to play her mother, and how did you kind of get that relationship on screen, I guess?
Oh, Matilda's amazing. She's so fantastic in this film, and she's just so open, and she's just incredible. And it was just so fun to act with her, and I love acting with kids because they actually make you a better actor. They make you more present. They make you you have to always be ready. And you should always be ready, but you really have to be ready with kids because they have a hard out of like when they have to leave. And so yeah, it was just great being in the moment with her, and we had a really good time.
Did that idea, having already kind of approached the Invisible Man with a new angle, did that make it easier or maybe more difficult when coming up with a new angle for Wolfman? Having done it before, did that kind of make the challenge easier or bigger? Or
a little bit. It was an interesting time for me creatively. Like I wrote 3 Saw movies. I'm not exactly someone who's been showered with good reviews my whole life. So when The Invisible Man came out, I was really chuffed, as they say. I was really blindsided and happy about how well it was received. The critics were into it, and I think good reviews are a dangerous drug, a very addictive drug. So I think the little film critic that sits on my shoulder when I write, he got a lot louder after The Invisible Man and was like, you won't do that again. So it was tough for me when I was working on Wolfman. I was thinking, like, I was trying to silence the inner critic and just be like, just forget about Invisible Man, forget about expectations or what people want to see. Just try to think of what would be interesting to you. You've only got yourself as a barometer pretty much when you're writing.
And when it comes to, obviously, werewolves and the Wolfman are things that have been seen in so many films. You've obviously got the original Universal film, but then, things like An American Werewolf in London, The Company of Wolves. There's been so many great kind of on-screen iterations of it. What are some of your favorites that you wanted to maybe not to, or that you were perhaps thinking about when you were writing and making this film?
I mean, American Werewolf in London's one of the first movies that really scared me. I used to have this situation in the house I grew up in where I could sneak out of my bedroom and be behind the couches where my parents would watch TV at night. So I was looking at the back of their heads. I had a perfect view of the TV, but they couldn't see me. I had a few close calls where they suddenly turned around and I was, Mission Impossible style. I made it back to my room in time. But I remember sneaking out one night and watching a good portion of American Werewolf in London, and it scarred me. I was too young to realize it was a comedy. It was very scarring. So that really stays in my mind, that image, and it is a scary movie, the balance of it. So I kept that, and I wasn't thinking so much about werewolf movies as I was thinking about movies that have utilized transformation in a great way, like David Cronenberg's The Fly. I think that movie is just a genius story and a great allegory for disease and illness, and it's tragic. Even movies like The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, obviously it's a common touchstone for horror filmmakers, but I just love the way they use prosthetic effects to create dread. They're not going for a laugh. It's not a comedy. It's, and so those were movies I was thinking about when I was writing this.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned the prosthetics there as well, because obviously it's a huge part of the film. Was that always something you wanted to do mainly practically rather than relying on VFX, or how did you kind of come to the version and the look of the werewolf that we have in this film?
I did know I wanted to do it practically. I think that, first of all, those tactile practical effects, the makeup is it's just a joy to point a camera at something that's really there. I think it's much more fun to point a camera at an actor that's been in the makeup chair for 6 hours, as opposed to pointing a camera at an actor with tracking markers on their face. Not that there's anything particularly wrong with that, and they've done some great creations. If we look at like the work of Andy Serkis, Gollum, these are characters that have been created using this state-of-the-art technology, and they're wonderful. And it's about the performance. It's not about the technology. It's about what Andy Serkis does. And so, but with this, I knew I wanted it to be right there on the set. I think this character has a history of makeup. I think when people think of the Wolfman, they think of makeup. Yes. That's the first thing they think of. And so I wanted to be part of that lineage from Lon Chaney to, Rick Baker's work. I wanted to be part of that. So I always, from the start, and then as far as developing the look, I worked with, once I chose Aryan Tushin as the makeup artist, and I was so happy with the decision to use him, because the first little model that he gave me just blew me away. Like, I wish I had it with me right here to show you right now. It was the very first thing he sculpted. It was like the Wolfman lying down against a wall with his foot in a chain, and God, I got chills when I first looked at that thing. And so we really developed the look just by saying, okay, we want this to be grounded. It's a disease, and that's where we started.
And in terms of some of the themes of the film, there's obviously a lot going on here in terms of, there's the stuff about his relationship with his own father, but then also the deterioration, I guess, of a relationship that he's in with his wife and his child. How much do you think, horror has always been a great avenue to explore different things, but why do you think this particular story allowed for, the possibility to explore these themes?
I think because, you know, at its heart, the Wolfman story is about transformation. And it's a tragedy because right back to the original Lon Chaney Wolfman, the protagonist of the story is also the antagonist. It's somebody who is changing in every werewolf story we see, from American Werewolf in London to whatever, Ginger Snaps, whatever, any horror film from the more popular ones to more obscure ones, they're always dealing with a story of someone who doesn't want to be doing what they're doing. They're fighting the transformation. And maybe not in the case of Teen Wolf, he really embraced it. Yes. But that to me immediately it correlates with this idea of illness and disease. And so, you know, that's where I let the film sort of take me where it wants to go, and that felt like the most natural direction for this.